Hey everyone, how's it going? Hopefully your evening, afternoon, day, whenever you watch this video is going well. So today or tonight, whenever you watch this, I just want to take a few minutes to kind of talk about entrepreneurship and kind of the responsibilities that actually come with being an entrepreneur. So in today's social space, if you're on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, and you're quite active like I am, one of the things that you see on a regular basis is that you see a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs and a lot of people who are selling courses and doing a number of things and showing and flashing their money and showing things with Lamborghinis and whatnot. And for me, like, that's a whole different side of entrepreneurship, whether it's real or unreal or whatever. However, what I want to talk about is not necessarily um, that side of entrepreneurship. I want to talk to my fellow entrepreneurs, and I also want to talk to people who are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. Whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, or 70. So I think I'll just kind of start with some of the things that I considered, when I wanted to become an entrepreneur and going out and starting my own business. So I think one of the first things that you think about when you start as an entrepreneur, everyone thinks it's very glamorous, and you've got the opportunity perhaps that you will start from home. So you're going to put in a lot of time. You're going to work, maybe from your garage, or you're going to work in your basement. You're going to work from home, but you always look at the end game, and you look in terms of where it is and things that you want to do. But the reality is that for many of us who are entrepreneurs, what we begin to actually think about is, when is that next paycheck coming? When, how do I continue to provide for my family if I have a family? you know and how do I provide for my home? How do I have food on the table? So all of those things kind of creep in, and what it can do, it begins to kind of go with your, changing some of the mindset, as you kind of take on the role of becoming an entrepreneur and starting a business. So there's a number of things that kind of go on, and sometimes it keeps you up at night, and you think you've got everything worked out, and you think everything is going well, and all of a sudden, like, it's not going well. So that's one thing I find when you get started. There's so many things to consider, and I see so many people that make so many mistakes on such a regular basis. So one of the things that I would highly recommend when you're starting out as an entrepreneur is to make sure that you kind of get a mentor and find someone that you can actually talk to and learn from them, and don't think that you can do it all on your own. So let's move on to the next stage in terms of, okay, right now, then, things that when things start to kind of go well, and then you begin to have that first employee, and you've got a number of clients, and all of a sudden you begin to make a little bit of money, and you got a couple of options there. And but then as you begin to bring on employees, what tends to happen then, and I know, even for myself, is that um, you're taking on the responsibility for someone else's means to make a living and to pay for their mortgage and to make sure that there's food on their table and for their family. So all of these things begin to play in your mind, and you're thinking about the changes that you have to make for your business, because obviously your business and your team members, and then the more people you bring on, these people are like family, and obviously we want to look out for our families. Um, but also, another component of bringing on new team members and adding new people to your team is that there's additional stresses that come along with that. Because in addition to their financial means, you also have to consider their mental health, and the way that, what are things that they enjoy. Are they happy with the work that they're doing? Are you giving them enough attention? Are you making sure that they're growing as an employee and as a person? You also have to wonder, like, are they burning out? Are they giving you their best effort? When is the day going to come that they're going to come in and they're going to resign, and all of a sudden you've got to start the process all over again? And as you bring on more and more of those people, the other things that happen with your team is that you also have to think about the culture that you want to have in your organization, and then how do you bring in people who are a fit for your team and for the culture. And not every person that you bring on is going to be an exact fit. It's not a, it's not a puzzle. Sometimes you might have to move around with a few different parts, but you want to make sure that you make the role when you hire comfortable for everyone. So those are also things to consider. And I think the other thing too is, like, as you become an entrepreneur, and things that can happen is that we have to look at the impact of social media and what that has as an entrepreneur. Because as you continue to kind of do more and more, and you build yourself up as either an influencer or a thought leader or somebody in the space, the actions that you take on social media can have an impact of what you're of the way you're perceived or your reputation. And on the flip side of that as well, when you're an entrepreneur, things that you want to, the thing that's always in the back of your head or in the back of your mind, even from, at least for me, is that you're always thinking about failure, right? And because of the way social media is today, we think about, what kind of an impact if my business doesn't succeed, or maybe I don't provide the best service or the best product. And then all of a sudden, if especially if it's a product or a service, and you get all these negative comments coming back, that has an impact on your health and the way that you begin to think about things and the way you kind of want to begin to move forward. So, just a couple of things that kind of come into play, and those are there, and those will almost constantly be there. I think as social media becomes more and more entrenched in the way that we kind of work and do things as a society. And then for anyone who's had a business and is kind of like doing things, the other part of it as well, is that there's these days when you have these days when you get up, and that feeling that you have of always being there, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, is not there. And you think, like, what happens, like, what happens if I wanted to give it up tomorrow? What kind of an impact does that have on me? And then you begin to think about the process, like, what would happen to my family, what would happen to my team, what would happen to me, as well. So those are kind of, I think, some of the things that happens, that I think for people who are not people who are entrepreneurs, or people who are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, I don't know if that's something that people always consider or always think about when you know when you want to become, or you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. So then I think the other part that I kind of want to talk about in this video is, I want to talk about how to deal with those things. And this is not kind of like, things that you as tried and true or tested or anything like that. But I do want to kind of give you a couple of things that I do. And hopefully this could be helpful for you, someone who's starting or someone who is an entrepreneur, in terms of how to deal with the stress and all the things that kind of get in your head, like either go from starting out to growing your business or exiting your business, or anything else that you want to do. So the very first thing that I want to talk about in terms of like how to deal with some of these issues that you may have is, for me, is you need to find something that completely gets you out of your head. Right? And that could be a hobby, that could be an exercise, or it could be a sport. It could be reading, could be writing, could be a number of different things, but you have to find something, right? And for me, I have a couple of those things. I think the one that always works for me is hockey. I've been playing hockey, I think, as long as I can remember. And it's one of those things that it doesn't matter what's going on in my life. When I get ready to play a game or a practice or whatever it is, as soon as I step on the ice, that rink that goes all the way around, what it does is it just kind of really takes away everything that I'm thinking about. Any of those stressors that I had talked about earlier completely goes away, at least for an hour and a half. So I think if you're starting an entrepreneurial journey, or you are an entrepreneur, you need to find something. It has to be at least one thing. But if you can find more than one thing, that's great. Another thing that I like to do that kind of really helps clear my head is running. It's one of those things, if you're having one of those rough days, to talk about like the day earlier, where maybe you're thinking of giving it up, or you've got a client where there's something wrong, or a service or a product, or maybe something with some kind of bad PR that's happening in your business. I find a good run typically helps as well. And those are things for me that kind of really help with kind of like, taking some of the stresses away of being a business owner or being an entrepreneur. Another thing that I think you have to do, I think what I see so often today is that I see so many people that are working, um, you know, 12, 14, 15, 16, 18-hour days. And in my personal opinion, I think that's way too much. I think you need to find a way to work a little less. And not everyone's going to agree with that. But you need to work less, and you need to find time for yourself and completely disconnect from these kind of devices, and just totally be you. Like, just have time to get in and to kind of start things. And one of the things that you can do, I actually started this recently as well, is that I have a new notebook, and it's called my idea book. And the only thing that goes in this book is ideas that I'm thinking about. So I could be sitting down, morning, evening, whatever, just take a little bit of time for yourself and just begin to write things, that just ideas that pop in your mind, things you want to accomplish, things you want to do in your business, some goals. And I think getting those things out of your head and onto paper can be really helpful. So doing those things, I find, is great to kind of help kind of clear your mind. Um, and then the last thing that I just want to talk about in this video is just try to remove unwanted stress from your life. And that's not necessarily easy all the time. I think with life, especially being an entrepreneur, business owner, and whatnot, stress is always going to be a certain part of your life. I think there's no way to get around that. But what you can do is that you can try to remove unwanted stress. So if you're in the service business, that might mean that you have to, you know, part ways with, maybe a client or a partner, or someone who provides nothing but stress for you, and you have to find a way to kind of take that stress away. Um, Other things that you can do as well is, in some cases, delegation might be something that you want to consider. Is, not taking things on completely for yourself, but having that support system. So whether that's a board of directors, or a leadership or a management team, or the mentor that I mentioned earlier in this video, I think those are things you can probably begin to think about in terms of ways to move unwanted stress. And then finally, one thing that I've also been trying recently is meditating. It's not an easy process, not for everybody, for sure, but I think, like anything, it's something that you practice. And I think as you begin to practice it, you can find ways to kind of work on your mind. So that's all I really wanted to do in this video, is just to kind of give you a couple of things for people who are considering being an entrepreneur, and also people who are current entrepreneurs, and just kind of give you some heads up on some of the things that people who are in the space have to deal with, and also ways that you might be able to deal with that stress. So I'd like to hear from you, and I would love to know, if you're starting the entrepreneurial journey, or if you're an existing entrepreneur, what are things that you currently do to kind of take care of yourself physically and mentally. So I'll look forward to connecting with you and seeing those things in the comments. That's it for tonight. Have a good one, everyone.